not then, but later. Too young remembering, sitting on his lap, sipping homemade wine, his bright white fingers tapping glass, the warm jug opaque with blood transfusion from longshore days contended on icy docks. His wool-capped cameo a flash behind the line, behind the snarling-fisted Brando seen on the waterfront. Facing my unrecognized godparents for the second of 3 times, my father's hand on my shoulder in nudged introduction. The floral framed backdrop of repose, now classic and faded, as still as afterlife. Happy he got the Buick afterwards, 5 years new, all 78 and maroon and red. Our family's first car. The gloss of its 2-tone paint reflective and prompting adjacency. The touch of its cool, hard steel as genuine as late autumn, chilling the deep, dark ground, reminding the body it's cold.
Way to go.
This piece is a few years old. It's called One Ring to Rule Them All. Hacked and released, compliant citizens expose their geography, complacently sharing privacy. The ring sees all. Retro 1984 surveillance, paranoia under siege. Town crier incites the mob mentality, pitchforking porch piracy. Neighborhoods networked via household doorbells. Everyone's adjoining camera footage, a panorama of evidence coalesced in the cloud. A minority report for the accused. A reality show playlist on cue, covertly watched by the omnipresent authority looking over your shoulder for omniscience. Smile, you're on fucking candid camera. Facial profiling, remote confrontation with your uninvited guests, proposing to be salesperson to sell you on, or package delivery driver to drop off whatever you've just been sold on. Hacked and released. Autonomy exposing the malicious intent posing to do you anonymous harm. You'll know my search history, my medical and criminal records, and my ancestral DNA before my cautious and calloused finger even rings your doorbell. Trapped in a data mine, tapped transcriptions from the front line, from the front porch to where's the white picket fence. This is the foundation of the electronica frontier, data-driven policing and a drive-by, enforcement of counterinsurgents, front stoop facial recognition, cataloged and categorized for reconnaissance, innocence, beware the future, hacked and released into architectures of abandon, hack, then release. Thank you. This is a short piece from last year. It's a fun piece. It's called Carnival. Riotous excess offers its amusement on the back of fanfare in the midst of discharge, a removal of meat compelled by the plucky hand of oblivion to teeter towards the unstill edge of invisible, frothing with the authority of compulsion, injected with the wondrous flare of loyal climax, to fall with the rattle of swollen sabers into fogs of imperceptible ecstasy, a pageant of severed flights off the dripping tongue. So this is a longer piece from, this is a few years ago, but this is a little bit of a personal piece. I hardly get to read it because, again, it is a longer piece, personal piece. It's a memoir piece too. So it's called Inheritance to the Wild, subtitled Raising the Primal. Their tongues whip about as if conjuring language, speaking in tribal topics that fall foreign on most ears. Nodding like a fist, this once loitering gang of youth now clusters with the clench of cohesion, protected in their pack mentality all through the awkward assembly. Strangers forcibly intermingled with extended family and related acquaintances. Attentive to their familiar manner, I note them as they converse and reconnoiter in their world within this parlor room, a world only they can see. In the midst of this room full of chatter and invoked reminiscing, the congregation gathered here today for the funeral of the dearly departed, yet another family relation. The guest of honor at the front of the room, a silent sentinel lying there with one hand positioned over the other, by another, in nearly cinematic yet unnatural repose. Their altered casket and the surrounding array of towering floral arrangements barely stabilized movie props. Standing on either side, a podium layered with Jesus trading cards, portraying religious figures in varying saintly poses and haloed pictorials, spread out like foiled variants for children to sift through and collect for later handoff to grandmothers. Audience throughout the chaired room, men mostly standing with hands in pockets and women mostly sitting with partially wadded tissues in hand. In a present row of fixed chairs, this string of boys is both standing and sitting in age and size order, not so coincidental as intentional, from subliminal years of practiced and unspoken, though understood, hierarchy. They hover over each other slightly, as they would tend to do in the course of these involuntary events. Clutched in their hands, a journal of poetry and eulogies, one newly prepared for the recently deceased. As if taking turns defending it, they paw at the etched leather cover acquainted with their grasp, opening it to random pages, reading its content, then passing it along to the more dominant other, like wolf pups in their natural habitat, claiming the found plaything as possession in the moments of attentive curiosity. Fixedly, I perceive them, my 5 sons of varied age, reminded of their wolf cub play around the house as infants, toddlers, then teenagers. How they'd sniff each other's heads for recognition and acceptance by scent, brimming with the brashness of life, bonding in a fashion akin to social structures in the wild, instinct connecting the tissue of visceral nature, raising the primal. How now they seem unnatural, unmindful in the company of mortality. I, on the other hand, am scared to death, not for myself, but for that reckless clairvoyance. Pressed in the urge to shape occasion, I fashion junctures toward envisioned expectations. In this moment, I recognize them, this brood, a depiction older in their brotherhood, a still loyal pack picking pages of their choosing from between the aged books popped leather, raising words that I had scrawled to claim as legacy. I become incorporeal in their eulogizing of me, bound together in the unanimity of mourning. This wolf pack reunited once again, and foreclosure as inheritance to the wild, they reconcile to conclude the remembrance in grieving powers. I've been wanting to read that one here for a long time. All right, so these next 2 pieces are somewhat related, written in, I guess, the spring to summer of 2020. So the first piece, I'm going to read it. They both have the same title. The first one actually was written 3 months prior to the other one, already had a parenthetical subtitle, oddly enough. And I'll tell you why I wrote the second one after I read this one. So we'll get into the first one. The process halted for drawing breath. Pocket change. Inside out, pockets aspire, pulled, obsolete, for the droppings of loose change, near extinct. Dog-eared, attentive, they lean down to listen, catching faint echoes, a feint of tings by the subtle tapping and turning of bare coins on currents of sidewalk surfaces, settling into a roll off the ground and down into gutter drains. Undrawn breaths collected in sewers like wishing wells, swallowed gasps of silver, copper, and nickel, lodged astonishments too stale to sample air, smothered by the clutter of a litter of aspirations amassing into colorless gas. Never volatile enough to surge, unsummoned genies yet to draw granting breaths. In rites of passage, their very vigil holds. Awash in time, familiar, they flicker, bottled desires unfounded, diluted and drifting at the urging of rushing rainwater. Thank you. So that was written in April of 2020, and then when I read that a few months later, a lot of the key words and phrases had different connotations because George Floyd was just murdered. So I love that poem, but I just, from all the meanings and connotations, I just felt compelled to write another poem using some of those same words and phrases, just in a different context, different syntax, and it's broken up the same way, slightly different. And again, same title, but different subtitle. It's called The Process Halted for Drawing Breath, Civil Change. Inside, pockets of air aspire, pulled, no, yanked from the core, escaping in a forced respire, dropped and pressed to the ground, faces splayed at street level to ogle the glimmers of flashing coins, dropped from dying eyes and loosened from the plain, nearly past extinct. Three-headed dog, ears pricked attentive to catch famed echoes, a faint of things like the subtle tapping and turning of last exhales, the blood-stained coins of currency barreling down by the pitch of concrete and asphalt, striking as a painted horse rolling its beauty off in rain to wash down the gutter. Drained, these undrawn breaths collected like last wishes, swelling silvers, coppers, and nickels, astonishing in stale air, smothered in skeletal hands, as unspent aspirations amassing for passage by colorless sticks, never fickle enough to surge unsummoned. In civil rites of passage, civil unrest ever vowing to find ascension from atop burial mounds, for unspoken whispers holding vigil, vying like genies to draw granting breaths. Lacking time flickers, something misinterpreted during assembly, landmarked by familiar disciplines, the flawed and inconsistent ideology of statues. Never spurred, in ever stagnant breath pouring from its nostrils, suspended there as if painted on the canvas of still air, beyond, the pale horse, by definition, never led to water. A couple more, and then I'll say one for last.
Yeah, that would be fine.
Yeah.
Sal. We're all having a good time.
Yeah. Thank you. All right. So, Don and Claudia will remember this. Last year we did a thing called the Nine Muses, right? I was invited to be one of the muses for music, and everyone did a muse. So this piece was prompted from having to do that. So I did some other pieces, but this was one of the new ones specifically written for that. It's called Musings on When I Was Spotted at Another Modern Music Venue. No auto-tune invocations here. Oh, by the way, let me stop for a second. So again, muse. Just close your eyes and imagine a voluptuous muse. That's all I'm doing. So sorry.
That's what I've been doing all along, Sal.
I
feel like you just outed me now.
Because I'm a little hoarse and I don't know if my femininity is coming across. So. Close your eyes, use your imagination. All right, let's start over. So, no auto-tune invocations here. just the linger of myriad tongues to cast their swill on the ear. By a seizure of rushing lights, I glow sporadic as I go rejoicing to the thump of stereo joy. I drink up the night's pour, deaf to your petition for divining, and together we conceive the Big Bang. Don't fret the harmonics plucked from air by the allure of whiskey vibrato. Charismatic vocalizations waver with screech and sin, and the pump of thrumming rhythms emanates overhead with dense abundance from oversized speakers. Oversexed, the maenads at the dark corner of the bar nod in respect as I pass them by, their eyelashes blinking codes of entreaty as their apostle prey suckle and sips at the numbing tips of breast wine. Overtones antagonistic to the heresy of dogmatic falsetto, pitch bending a sharp stiletto like choirs of angels crying, paint in sonic refrains to the unison stroke of 1,000 phallic totems fist pumping. With Gothic geometry, the stage stairs snap to my Lorelei eyeliner for ovation, and the band swears I flashed one tip. The shell-shock style of old depictions in the flesh. Chorus of potency, your vocation becomes you as you dwell in the slow spectrum of the analog amplified. Your oracle's tongues, succulence, licking at the grooves of vinyl. I climb stage right to cleave smoke, heave from platform boards as if parting mist. From classical Mount Cliffs, my slow dive ritual landing my flesh on the fingertips of crowd surface, and I writhe in the caress to the immolation of guitars. Never since Semele a fire was donned in stars have I offered up blessings in whispers like my sisters of Helicon, fascinated to always forfeit consecrations, choosing instead the ensnare of net return in vain cycles, ever basking in the addiction of endless inspiration. A mass collection stimulus I siphon in the depths of given delights, music composed from lightning and memory, the supplication of cool exorcisms. So, thank you. And I'll do one more, and stay for the open reading. This series is phenomenal, and stay for the encore. So this last piece is
Do
called.
I still picture the?
If you like, whatever turns you on.
Can I open my eyes now?
You guys. Not sure this is a poem, but where do I curb the punctuation to meter your enthusiasm? Do I leave it at the doorstep of our doubt? I don't doubt you define my intentions are purely abstract, things left to dangle, dissolved on the tongue like salt, grains of sand. I know nothing but that it charts time in well-traveled erosions, dwell no rubbed eyes for the reposed. In wicked sights, the aesthetic lies casual, rooted in the circumference of water. Mind this vessel, it floats or sinks from view, fluid pains from vantage points of existence at either side, dependent. Avoid the surface yields a missingness of merely elusive reveal, urgings for the discipline of faculty, slipping in and out of inertia, a divine utterance to bask by design in the gulf you didn't know was there. Thank you. Our hero of the day. Hey. Pot smokers outside.
Cigarette.
Absolutely. I'm sorry.
Can I borrow $10?
Yeah.
Got a match to go with that?
Yeah.
I got almost no sleep last night. It's catching up to me now.
So, the hour has arrived, and those who are open get to appear on the open mic. So we're gonna have, we have enough time for people to read 4 minutes instead of 3 if they'd like. 4 would be okay. I think would be fine, but just, don't tell anybody. So we're gonna start off as we often do. The rules are quite plain. You have to applaud when people are approaching the mic because it takes great courage to come here. And you have to applaud all the way back to their seat because once they've allowed their souls to come out of their body, they are unprotected except by your applause until they get back to their seat. And of course, be nice to each other and no bad behavior, but cursing is allowed. So we'll start off as we often do with Mark Fogarty. Please give him a round of applause.
Sal, excellent work. I enjoyed it. I was going to say, like a breath of fresh air, but I thought that might not be appropriate. We've just passed the anniversary of the attack and destruction of the section of Tulsa called Greenwood. And a couple of years ago, I guess it was the 100th anniversary, the New York Times did a reconstruction of Greenwood, the houses and the businesses and all. I was quite taken by it. So this poem is called Walking in Greenwood. I want to get to Greenwood, resurrected in some 3D printer miracle I don't understand. In Greenwood, I think, I could find relief from America the hate, the never melt together, dead in the ground, tiny corpses, bloody guilt, necrotic secret for the big reveal. We just all get along. Guilt sown in the ground springs back up, a bloody finger pointing, feeling, the blind fire god moving his scorching hand over the earth. The homes and stores of Greenwood, vanished for a century, have come back to life like buildings you see when a dam goes offline and everything at ground dries out again, once and again in the sun. There's the Tulsa Star and its hot ink composition trays. There's McKeever the dentist, smart enough to have an office above a confectioner's. There's the Brunswick billiards parlor, perfect if you can afford to lose an afternoon of your life. The X-ray machines are searching overtime. There are tiny, unmarked graves at Indian boarding schools, and mass graves unmarked, where they shoveled the Greenwood dead. The mob burned the town down the way my neighbors would like piles of leaves back when it was legal, back when the ascending smoke didn't foul the sky. The mob shot dentists and confectioners all at once. I went to Tulsa once, to a meeting on Indian housing. Someone said to me, what are you doing here? I was born here, in the same country. I've been to 50 states, a district, a territory, a commonwealth. I'm welcome wherever I go and nowhere. All the people I met loved their countries, worked hard, loved their children. All of them looked for justified ground. There were 2 newspapers on Greenwood Avenue. I'm sure one of them would cover the meeting. Greenwood is like the town I was born in, under another name. The town my grandparents had a house in, with a corner store where you could trade an empty soda bottle for a fudgesicle. The town built by virtue of free labor, a place for respite when the sun goes down. It's the town you build when slavery is gone like a burst boil. Sanity may be rising like water towards the stiles, and freedom is at the head of the marching band. Oklahoma reminded me of where I come from, a place for old drugstores and magnolia festivals, places for green grass, places to enjoy its vast sunshine, a land of green grass like Ireland, where the rivers chafe at their banks, ready to spill over, a land where there are new births of freedom all the time. Cromwell, the son of a bitch, would lock the people in church and burn it down. We came across an ocean, mourning the green and golden eternity we had to leave. I mourn now of someone set our wooden mounds on fire and shot our sacred abolitionist. Time has conjured Greenwood back because it's too beautiful not to rise again. It's exactly the place I have dreamed about, the contentment I'd like after a day of hard work, the restaurant where the waitress doesn't mind making more coffee just at closing time, the hotel that anchors you past the traveler's fitful rest, where there's a useful fire in the corner of the snug. The sun doesn't want to go down. The community band is scraping through Beethoven in the bandshell in the park, where I buried the Centennial News, and there's basketball on later tonight. The only sound is the squeak of athletic school shoes. There's no need for an all clear. Mothers and fathers, you took me across the ocean. Walk with me, I beg you, in Greenwood. Walk with me past the Stratford Hotel, take in a show at the Dreamland Theater, have a meal at the C.E. Hughes restaurant, stop for something sweet at the Williams Confectionery. I have found it, the place you meant for me to have, the place to live beyond the reach of the wrathful hand. I will raise my hand again, and we will all be naturalized. Greenwood is where I pledge my life and sacred honor.
Yeah. I feel I was utterly deficient in my introduction of Mark. Mark is the long-time, just some of you, but not all of you know, long-time editor of the Red Wheelbarrow. Went all the way back to #1, Mark, or back to #1.
Wow.
And you know, there are now 6 people doing the job that Mark did for all those years. So if you wouldn't mind putting your hands together for him. Next up, a guy whose CV I have no idea what it says. John Trigonis. Give him a round of applause.
I don't know what my CV says either, actually. I haven't used one in a while. How is everybody? Nice, cool, good to see you. I'm going to share a couple of brief ones. This first one just got published, which is nice.
Where?
It's a new publication, an as yet unnamed.
Wow. That's so special.
Yeah, tell me about it. But hey, you know.
But the name No Name magazine has already been used.
Yeah, apparently. So we'll see how it goes. This is called Emerge. And this is from a little chapbook called What Great Stars and Other Poems. It looks like a CD booklet. You can't emerge when you're unwilling to submerge yourself into unknown depths of self, starless, existing as two halves split down a center that cannot hold consciousness whole. You'll never emerge without driving down low into the hell that hinders you. Allow yourself to orange like that old Chevy, 4 flats and a crack in the windshield as wide as the universe is weary. Stranded in someone else's driveway. Someone you don't recognize. Someone whose company you don't enjoy anymore. Whose touch reminds you of mind control. Whose eyes when kissed by moonlight, are the color of longing, whose lips have misplaced your name again.
Oh, boy.
And that is why all you can do is dream of emergence until someone else arises from within, hot wires that fireless engine, rides off onto the parkway on wheels that time and breath had all but forgot. Rust and Ragnarok. Be there.
Wow.
Just something lighter.
A little less Ragnarok.
Yeah, a little lighter than Rust and Ragnarok. This is called Things I Keep in an Altoids Tin.
Great.
The Greek Orthodox cross
Yeah.
I got when I was baptized. A Battlestar Galactica Centurion missing its right arm. A U.S. stamp with James Dean's face on it.
Nice.
The rotten teeth of my first two feline companions. A small marble with an orange ghost trapped inside.
Nice.
My mother and father's wedding bands. Still waiting. Two random birthday candles, one white, one yellow. A collection of buttons crammed snugly into a dime bag. Because you never know when you'll stumble upon something that needs buttoning up.
Wow, way to go.
Thank you very much.
Cheers to John Pagonis. You know, John P. Pagonis, author of What Great Stars and Other Poems. Next up, we have someone who needs no introduction and therefore will get none. It's Don Zerilli, current editor of the Red Wheelbarrow Journal.
Thank you, Sal. Much enjoyed, as I told you. This is called my first real prayer. Dear Lord, now that your existence has been definitively proven by the James Webb Telescope, we can finally have a conversation, a real conversation. There's no limit on this. It's been calculated, so I can ask you whatever. Like, when I pull a tick off of me, I can just eat it, right? Pop it in my mouth like other mammals? Why not? And why did Zowie die before she was 3? I was so intent on knowing what was wrong with her. But then she died, and of course, they're not going to autopsy a dog, of course. And why did the need to know drop off of me?
Wow.
Was that peace or just cowardice? Lord, what was love? When I was hiding naked under a blanket from Susie, my poor cousin and babysitter? Why did I, not long afterward, become ashamed of that body? Show me the moment, the decision, which I have forgotten, or never noticed while it was happening. Before I knew you, I saw the prayers of others like Scotch tape, empty bottles, all those efforts and contortions to dispose of a tick that will not die, in order to keep it from returning. Now that your hearing has been tested, I speak in a normal conversational tone to the heavens. What gets caught in your beard? What is praying to you right now? The ship of Theseus docks at the Office of Admissions and asks where the university is. But then Theseus shows up. landing some divine bastard horse on the deck. Sorry I'm late, but it's not easy finding a thread long enough. I created this university. You're standing in it. You're it. You see where I'm going with this. Caught between fragments and entireties, you just laugh it off. I last saw you looking at a sugar maple as one of the leaves fell, and you asked, is the tree more or less beautiful now, as you killed my aunt? Since then, everything I've asked you, you tell me to open my eyes again. No, thank you, God. This is my prayer. Of course, we were going to stumble on you, and that would reach back and forward to every moment of us like a wave, and open us of our separate finite material, which after all had never held us back. Else we would have thought nothing, dreamt nothing, thought not of our dreaming. I am, you warned us, implying we are not, which our instruments would eventually corroborate, allowing me to finally pray, disallowing anything else.
Thank you, Don. That was beautiful. Really, genuinely, beautiful. In honor of John Trouse, we will be skipping the fourth spot. So the fifth reader will be Denise Linnell. Denise, it's great to have you back.
Thank you. This poem, I don't know how many of you have ever saw the show Yellowstone. I never did. But I saw the spin-off, 1923. And the title of this is called The Rule of 500, which I'm using as an epigraph from that episode. And the epigraph goes, it was just a big family, really. But when the number of people got up about 500, if there wasn't any government, the strongest people would take advantage of the weakest, every time, without fail. We can view a panoramic landscape and still not see it all. We can discuss, plan among ourselves, until we reach 500. The point, chaos insinuates itself and begins to fester. Our emotions divide, compartmentalize. We rely on two inherent triggers, one that builds stock markets and the other that let them crash. Greed and fear, opposites they say. I think of them more as devouring lovers, never wanting to share, lusting after everything, yet somehow needing each other in this seductive dance of power. I follow their lead, try not to, but am pulled into their centripetal pirouette. Sometimes hope and love return to tango with my heart, and then I remember how pleasant life can be. This one just has its title as part of the poem. The headline reads, LMP dies at 54. Not enough room for her full name, Lisa Marie Presley. I remember her as a child, born to an icon, simply known as Elvis. His mononym typed out in this news article. Enduring the Golden Globes, where motioned her hands above her heart in affectionate approval. Am I merely a witness to her birth and death, not the years in between that comprised her life? Though this is certainly true with members of my own family, and with friends who strayed away for no apparent reason, such as one who traveled to Europe to start a career, but after sending a year's worth of letters, moved again with no forwarding address. Or my once closest cousin, the two of us growing up together, climbing the backyard tree every year before the apples ripened, only to drift apart on the winds of new friendships, new loves. Like one thought or feeling pushing out another, until they are all deeply buried in a milieu of forgotten musings that can no longer be recalled. Are time and space really the same? No time to remain connected, no space to spell out names. Thank you.
I don't know if it's coincidence, but I've noticed a pattern. You get Denise Lenov, and then, for some reason that I can't understand, right after her comes Paul Nash. Now, it happens again and again, and there doesn't seem to be any explanation for it. Please welcome Paul Nash.
Thank you. This first one is entitled Shooting Star. Look, there goes another one. Where? You missed it. There's one. What? I didn't see anything. Two of them, to the northeast. Huh? Three to the southwest. Are you making this up? No, you gotta look quicker. Yeah, right. Anyway, clouds are moving in. Strange clouds. Like they're hiding something. Uh-oh. Now I see lights. Those aren't meteorites. Those are... Run! It's the QAnon lizard people in the super-vax zombie apocalypse. They found us. Yeah, look, there's Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert. And who's that running past us? It's Josh Hawley.
Oh, yeah.
Run away! Run away! We have to reset the timeline. Clinton wins in 2016? No, too late. Gore wins in 2000.
Yes.
You got time for one more. You got time for one more.
Okay. Then I think I'll do this one. All right.
There you go.
Okay. Caught in my eye. Focusing on that tree over there with the peeling bark. Trying to remove dust particles trapped in my left eye. I see something crawling around the rim, and I can almost make it out, barely, as it circles upwards, round and round, doing loop-de-loops on my visual cortex, till it completely disappears from sight. But maybe it was never there. Or it's actually here, not there, crawling out of my eye. There's no longer a tree, or anything at all around me, except a WeatherTech floor mat beneath my body. And I remember I was once alive as I drift, frozen, in Elon Musk's cherry red Tesla Roadster, floating somewhere in space between Mars and Jupiter. They should have checked the trunk.
Thank you so much, Paul. It was very entertaining. I'd like to introduce a rare bird to you now to read a poem, because many of us know people who have been nominated for a Pushcart Prize. I don't know any of us who knows someone who actually won one. Except now you do, because Claudia Soraya is here, the recent winner of a pushcart prize. Are you going to read that poem for us? No, she's not, because we don't deserve it. Please welcome Claudia Soraya.
Hi everyone, thanks for being here. And Sal was lovely. I have an announcement. I'm reading tomorrow night in Brooklyn at the Underland Art Gallery at 6:30 with Chris Campagnoni and Sal Roseo. So I know it's kind of a trek from New Jersey, but
What's the address at the Unders?
it's called the Underland Gallery. But I have that information if you.
Sure.
So yeah, I didn't think of reading that poem. I want to read. I just came back from Romania, so I want to read from my book some poems about Romania. And this one is called "Rocks from the Black Sea." Kids always like to pick rocks, and we did each year, carrying pounds of heavy mementos on the bottom of our travel bags. Fingering them, I thought about soldiers who carry pebbles or a handful of soil from home in their pockets into the battle for good luck so they can return. And I remember how my father told me he picked up some rocks and dirt from his parents' grave, filled a bag, carried it hundreds of miles, and poured it over the cemetery plot he bought for him and Mom. So he wouldn't feel guilty anymore that he didn't visit his parents' tombs in a long time. I wonder if I'll do the same. Wonder if I'm hoarding rocks and sand to fill the distance. On a wooden table outside, I gathered the stones around the weather lantern into a still life, a miniature landscape of memories from the sea, for good luck, so I can return.
Claudia, what's the name of that book you're reading from?
In those years, no one slept. It's my latest book. The moon, my brother and I. The moon, my brother and I sit outside at the wooden table, covered with a white cloth, and drink wine and moonshine from shiny tumblers. And we figure out the Americans, the Russians, the Romanians, the EU, and the Chinese. We're very well versed in this, from decades behind the Iron Curtain. We know all about the special interests, corporations, the military complex, stolen revolutions, the FSB, the Mossad, the CIA, the nationalists, and the globalists. Pour me some of freedom, baby brother. Alcohol makes us understand more in its glaze. We see clearer for a few brief moments and agree, we're fucked. We sleep well tonight. Happy at least we get it. Until morning, when everything is different.
What a postcard prize! Woo! Amazing. It's unforgivable as well. Next up, one of the Hydra-headed editors of the Red Wheelbarrow Journal this year, and the owner of that telephone right over there, Frank Rubino. Please give me a round of applause.
Wow, what a great night. I thought it would be a small crowd, so I brought a huge pile of poems in case there needed to be a filler. But I'll just read two. I'm going to start with this one. Not only is there no light at the end of the tunnel, there is no tongue. I was sitting at a sushi bar in Cleveland, Ohio, picking up a business dinner with my customer, John, a black Korean man who has become my friend. Your data architecture and my data, said John, will show how structural racism affects the individual person. We talked about data showing most gun fatalities are white veterans committing suicide, and most perpetrators of gun violence are black youth. John went to the bathroom, and he came out saying, as I emerged from the men's room, I saw, as in the air before me, a vision, a fork. One way is suicide, and one way is homicide. Growing up, John had a dirt yard and unfeeling parents who had adopted him. He often threatened to pull my beard if I argued or was wrong. What part of you, he said, would you like to release? I looked at the silver cap on the soy sauce decanter. I was talking to a black man, and there's so little that holds me back, credibly, materially, and he asked me, what is it? What keeps you? I looked at the silver cap, so bright because of the sake. I looked into the hoary face of the deep-fried shrimp.
Gosh.
Its forward whiskers encrusted with frying. Its black eyes, black, and felt its eyes like little black pellets roll inside my mouth. What if you could release what holds you? I looked at the blue water glass, ridged on the bottom part, flaring to support a hexagonal superstructure. So much elaboration in that glass alone, so much design. I can't believe anything holds anything together at all, I said. Not even water. I have this other poem, which I'm going to read to you, which is also sort of about data. Definitely a different take, a bit lighter, I think. Well, I hate to actually
That poem was about data?
Well, it had data and data architecture in it.
It had a drunk person just like Claudia's poem.
So this one I wrote in collaboration with AI. This one I wrote not with ChatGPT, which is where you can ask questions and it will answer you in big hunks of prose and stuff, but with the earlier generation of AI, GPT-2. And this is where you give it some text and you say, finish what I just sent, what I just handed you. And then it handed at me some, I gave it some text, which was some notes that I'd been taking, poem lines, which I thought I might use. And then it spit out some more lines, and then I edited it. So it helped me in writing it, and this is what we got. God save the Queen. You feel love, too, when you see it. And I love you when you feel safe around me. I love you when you think you are so loved you can't lose love, no matter what. I was at home in the park, trying to find an answer where you would go when I wanted to die. I'm so scared to get up in the morning or wake up screaming in the middle of the night, thinking you're alone somewhere sleeping. I've made some noise, the only song ever heard on my guitar. I have been trying to have a conversation with you, and I couldn't get it as big as you. I can even feel the words coming through my ears, and it's so quiet and so warm and so peaceful. The sound of the song comes through. You, the voice, and I've heard this voice. I've been sitting with this voice for 25 hours. I've made music for everybody, and I'm all yours to be alone with. No other man can ever be alone with you just now.
Oh,
Thank you.
gosh. It's like a dialogue with I thought it was you that couldn't be alone with it, or it couldn't be alone with you anymore.
Yeah.
John Dahl, come and read us a poem or sing us a song. John Dahl is here. And you know what they say, a dull song is never boring.
Oh, God.
Actually, you will get some dull music. Many, many beautiful nuggets tonight, and thank you very much. Nathan. After 35 years of loyalty, Nathan was sized down. 2 months later, he had a stroke. And the spinning corporate wheels splattered Nathan's battered carcass onto some graph of efficiency. As stocks surged, while Anne struggled desperately to sustain him, and Nathan withered away and died, becoming fertilizer for generational growth. And the Dow rose, and Nathan fell. We may be going to the moon, but we are stuck in the mire of non-compassion. I dedicate this one to Arthur.
Uh-oh.
The house we live in. There's the big house where those rich folks live, and I can tell you something about it. It's spacious and clean, and it's luxury laden, with grounds so pristine, there's no doubt about it. They sleep in their beds, and they eat at the table, and in exquisite bathrooms, rich folks relieve themselves. And they may or may not be as happy as me. At the end of the day, we all live in ourselves. And what was it like to be Mother Teresa, Gandhi or Jesus or Martin Luther King, who felt the same oceans, beheld the same sunsets, smelled the same flowers and heard the birds sing? And what is it like to live in that big house, so luxury laden with comforts galore? I can't deny I am filling with envy, desirous of wealth, I keep craving for more. And what was it like to be Mother Teresa, Gandhi or Jesus or Martin Luther King, who felt the same oceans, beheld blazing sunsets, smelled fields of flowers, and heard the birds sing?
Thank you so much. That was beautiful. It was beautiful. We're all so lucky to have you. Next up, someone who has not been here for a while. Don't know if she's ever been here exactly, but she was definitely part of the workshop a couple of years ago before COVID, and we're so happy to have her back, so please give her a warm welcome. It's Charlotte Kerwick.
I've really enjoyed tonight. I haven't been around the Red Wheelbarrow thing since 2021. But when I did do the workshops, they helped a lot, and then they were kind enough to publish a couple of poems in their journals. So I was going to read two maybe. And if there's time, I wanted to read one from my father too, because he was part of the William Carlos Williams Center scene when it first started, and he was like Jim Klein and him, other guys from that era just would hang out in our house, you know, reading poetry to each other and working on it. And at the time I was, you know, not very into it at all, but now I see how like really cool that was, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, all right. I should have had a title for this one, but for some reason I didn't do it. I need to think of something. I can't tell you what I used to talk about as a kid, but somehow I filled all those days with my voice. One story my family tells is how I used to be dressed up like a doll, standing on our front porch, telling every passerby to go fuck themselves. I was 3 at the time. Most likely I was just mimicking my mother, who had a PhD, but swore like a Jersey City salad, though the attitude stuck with me. I can't fake it when I write, and that's why I do it, and why I stop doing it when I get bored with the story I'm telling myself. The best writing I've done were the hundreds of haiku I wrote on my 23-minute commute in and out of the city over the course of several feverish months. I couldn't stop thinking in 575 while I contemplated my existence on New Jersey Transit, while taking in the forlorn rushes, unapologetic industrialism, and scandalous sunsets of my native landscape. Do you think it matters whether someone grows up in natural beauty, say in Polynesia instead of Passaic? Will you have a blossoming interior landscape instead of an empty parking lot of the soul with a bouquet of faded regrets crumbling when you go to stroke them just one more time? My father was a poet. For a decade before his health failed, he devoted himself to writing with a passion I don't remember seeing him display to anyone else in that house. Maybe that's why I took up poetry as my last act, trying to make something out of the detritus of a sloppy life. The hardest part has always been to take myself seriously as a writer. Do I have anything to say with greater urgency than my love for you both? Like having a conversation with myself that I secretly hope the world will overhear.
Nice.
This one is called Army Picture. My father told me the war allowed him to take off his heavy coat of Orthodox religion, laying to rest family dreams of their only son to become a cantor. From Pitt Street to Paris, he was all smiles that day, his French girlfriend coyly perched across from him in the corner of the photographer's studio. My mother said, "Your father just wanted to marry a woman who ate bonbons and read French literature." Oh, you mean not a political animal with a PhD and a penchant for hoarding cats and dogs? How could that be, Mom? I dreamt of being a woman like that, luxuriating with a book in one hand and a chocolate melting in the other. I imagined his young life, writing poems for Stars and Stripes, studying at the Sorbonne after the war, repatriated back on the Lower East Side as an experimental actor. My father looked so happy and confident in those old photos, before marriage and making the mid-century exodus to Jersey. On a crystal night, December 1982, outside St. Mark's Church, I finally saw my father, exultant as a reborn poet. He looked then to me just like Moses.
Nice. What is this thing?
I have to read a poem of my father.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Actually, two of it. Strange. When I'm not working, my work feels strange. Seems to have been written by a man out of love with his life. It appears foreign, English, yes, but accented raw enough to send shockwaves through me. Who is, I asked, this untutored longshoreman I have harbored for so long? Thinking him dead, I went on with my life, until I see him in the writing, a man broken and swept clean. He mumbles, though, about a stolen childhood, a black-eyed woman for a mother he can't get out of his mind. One day I will dispossess him. He talks too much and doesn't pay the rent.
Thank you so much. She's rather proud of it herself. She's come back to us. We must love her.
All right. I'm coming. I'm going to do this thing. I'm going to say your name. Next up,
Next week, right?
kind of a newcomer as far as I can see, but I don't know a lot of things. So, would you all put your hands together and give a warm welcome to John Schuenjurgen. Close, close. Say it for us.
It's Scooty Youngin.
Oh!
I'm going to bring part of that on my handwriting because it's pretty awful. So. Anyway, thank you all, and thanks to Sal. Just fantastic, and being in a group with him at Jersey Shore Poets has been rewarding. And I'd say this, I apologize to Sal because I'm not sure if I workshopped any of these with him, but if they did, they're repetitive for Sal, so hope it's okay. Just going to read two, they're not that long. The first one is called The Dead Do Not Wave. We are confronted by waves, war green and unabated, prophets that rumble repent near the sea-soaked sand. So storm stirred, violent, they pummel shore and heart alike, undiscerning in their torment. I have worshipped this inscrutable sea, cast my innocence upon its swells. Bound near the shore, I stand where the seabird winks its derision. We are slaves to tides, left to flip and burn in the shallows. This world is murderous. The dead do not wave when claimed by the swells. The bitter sea swallows its prey and belches indignantly at our feet. I am stabbed by 1,000 tiny shells and warned, hush, rush, hush, rush.
Nice.
This is the death that awaits. The second one didn't start out that way, but it kind of turned into a love poem. I titled it Reunion. It is clear in this half-light that you are beautiful. It was always so, but now, as the candle has burned to the dimness of years, I see and declare ours a good life. Here rests one truth, that I love you as an idea, as an indelible fire, as the breath on my cheek, the voice in my ear whispering. We were young together, filled with illusions then, of flames burning forever.
Wow. As I said, that was John Schuenjurgen.
Closer, closer.
You're getting there.
Ron Bremner, come on, read us a poem. Ron was our featured poet last year. He read a wheelbarrow journal. Comes a long way to leave here. Comes a long way to get up on the stage. Show him some respect. You know he's a featured poet. You ready? Oh, good.
What a great reading by Sal. Mike, take it over. And I hope that we get Raymond Turco back for another day for a feature. We're coming up to the birthday of a very great poet, Nikki Giovanni. And there's going to be an anthology and a reading for her this Sunday. The time and the Zoom details are not available yet, but when they are, we'll make them available to everybody. And one of the poems that's going to be in that anthology is one from my book, Chapbook, Erasing Influences. It's an erasure of Mothers by Nikki Giovanni. We kissed silence and read time. Living burned. Mommy always sat in the dark. I stumbled into the night because I had wet the bed. She was sitting on moonlight diffused through thousands of people. She may have been a strong believer in the Samson myth, and very black. I'm sure I remember a beautiful lady. My son must learn to bear the pleasures as we have borne the pains. Thank you, everybody.
Until he gets out of the bathroom and back to his seat. Marion, you ready? Marion Calabra, give her a round of applause.
Thank you, it's very good to be here. I've gotten something out of every single poem I've heard. I was surprised and thrilled to have read this sonnet on radio recently on WNYC FM. It was chosen as part of National Public Radio Celebration of Poetry
About
Month.
consequences, right?
Yes, that was
the prompt.
Yeah.
That's right, yeah. It starts with a quote from the Mary Rogers memoir, Shy. The intimacy of 19, 20, and 21 is not like any you ever experience again. It's very deep and very narrow. You are dumb and brave, and maybe they are the same thing, Mary Rogers. Dumb and brave. Dumb and brave, maybe they are the same thing. Dumb, but you thought you were smart about life. Brave, but you thought you were shy and frightened. You were all those things. He was all those things. 50 years on, you keep in touch sometimes. He saw the name of your town on a truck. You ask if you can quote his latest essay in your class. You don't really need to ask. Still courteous to a fault, both of you. Quick in breath, feeling around, unkind, kind, despite tossing your love in the gutter. Despite happy marriages decades long. You could meet again, but you don't. Who knows why? Mystery keeps things alive. That and kindness. Thank you.
Wow. Applause for Ron Grimm. You got to come back more often. We love seeing you.
I can now, thank you.
Super.
I will, thank you very much. And I need to write a follow-up because we did meet.
Keep back up here.
I haven't written it yet.
All right. Next up, one of the gang of six, Hydra-headed editorship of the magazine and our presence here. It's Moira O'Brien. Would you welcome her to the stage? All yours, Moira.
closing the gap between available funds and the cost of next year's tuition. Lucky me, I landed a job waitressing at a diner.
Oh, good.
The other waitresses must have thought I was mute and wondered how I ever managed to take a dinner order. Having been raised not to interrupt until the other person finished her thought, I lacked the tools to wedge my way into their conversations. So I bobbed in a sea of non-sequiturs. We sat there, the overnight shift of the candlelit diner, punchy after 12 hours that started with serving early bird dinners to retirees, followed by pre- then post-movie date couples, some of whom should have paid rent for the hours spent lingering over cold coffee at a deuce. Later came the bar crowd rush, first the customers, drunk, eating eggs in a short stack, then the bartenders, club managers, and the occasional exotic dancer not eating her scampi. When we finished the side work of prepping stations for the morning shift, it was time for breakfast and bullshit. Too tired to get up and go home, we exchanged jokes that any 12-year-old would have been proud of. Joetta's favorite: did you know you can tell the size of a man's penis by the size of his wife's mouth? Then, through tightly pursed lips, Pretty Pat answers, I wouldn't say that. Hilarity. Keeping with her class clown mischief, Joetta asks Mi-young, whom everyone at the diner calls Kim, to say shrimp scampi. Mi-young obliges and through her accent says, swimp scampi. More hilarity. Before the round table adjourns, there's a rousing debate about appliances. Wanda's testimony on Kenmore wins the day. Big Pat had seconded, and Joetta was out of gas. The veteran waitresses had peeled off one by one, and I was killing my last cigarette when Mi-young addressed me directly. The Wanda is so simple, though. Come on, I said. Let's get out of here.
Did I miss anybody?
Yes, Arthur Russell.
I'd like to call Arthur Russell to the stand. This poem is a piece of a poem called House Paint, or Dave Kramer's son George called Georgie an autistic savant, and my mother ran into one another at the corner of Coney Island Avenue and Avenue J in front of the Dime Savings Bank, now called Chase. George recognized my mother, Selma, first, and called out in his blatting trumpet voice, Selma Russell, Bert from Hollywood's wife. Behind the Kramer's hardware counter, leaning on the door frame to the basement stairs, his forearm draped akimbo on his head, his face at rest, deflated sphere of eyebrows and dark lips, George, from his honeycombing mind, called out blatting like Louis Armstrong's trumpet, answering questions from customers for inventory items and their price, like this. 5/8" machine screw brass, 18 threads per inch, 12 cents each, 9 cents in a box, box of 100 costs $9. Matching nuts, nickel a piece, 5 cents is a nickel. Nickel a piece, he might repeat and chuckle, as if remembering the time that Dave, his father, taught him that 5 cents equaled a nickel. Joy at that kitchen table that day, you know. Laughing, till Dave said, okay, no more Georgie. Or something else. Maybe nickel tickled him, or the word of peace, I wondered. You couldn't help but wonder, revolted and entranced by him, by his blatting trumpet voice. My mother, though she lacked my father's gift for mimicry, tried to mimic, was the one he used to call out the names and account numbers and even regular orders when people came into the store. Harry Lopez from Big S, Elijah from Opco Properties, liquid soap, no lanolin, allergic. Selma Russell, Bert from Hollywood's wife. Well, hello, George, my mother said. So nice to see you. Do you live not far from here? Park Manor Adult Home, 570 Coney Island Avenue, room 17. Clumpy flakes of snow were falling calmly without wind the day that George met my mother outside the dime savings bank. A clumpy wet snow that clung without melting on George's stocking cap and Selma's black fur coat, her gray-blue scarf expertly poofed up at the collar. What became of that coat, Cindy, after Selma passed? Ask Cindy. Cindy would know. It was easy to stand outside on the street that day in the big flake, no-wind snow. An easy day to be a child in the snow. Selma in her black fur coat and Georgie in his blue canvas jacket, brass zipper behind a blue canvas placket, thick woolen gloves. Dave Kramer was dead. Bert was dead. Kramer's hardware was sold. Hollywood Car Wash was sold. I got this report from Selma at the round glass table with the lazy Susan and the blown glass bowl where she kept plastic pears and the occasional phone bill in need of attention in her 7th floor apartment in Delray Beach, Florida with windows on the intercoastal waterway. She wished she had said more to George, but what was there to say? She mostly indirectly knew him from the dinner table stories Bert would tell, of conversations Dave and he would have. For instance, finding Dave mid-afternoon with a half an egg salad sandwich still uneaten on the counter by the register, the mayo getting glassy with the weight. And when Bert said, "But Dave, your food," Dave said, "I need some aggravation to digest my lunch." Oops, come back. But more likely to my mother, there were promises that David made to George's mom, who predeceased him, to care for George, which meant to keep the store much longer than he otherwise would want, so George would have a place to go. Bert knew these things, and Selma, through Bert, knew them too. And with her mother's heart, they came to her that snow-globed day outside the bank when she had turned to answer to her name and saw his round face aged as any man's would age, with fat, wet snowflakes on his woolen cap. She had an instant wish to talk, as if old friends, to reminisce, survivors they of olden days when she had come to work at Hollywood on Saturdays to keep the car wash books, make payroll, always dressed. You had to know how smartly she would dress, so elegantly walking through the steam gun steam to reach the office as the men, like honor guards, their vacuum wands and steam guns turned aside to let her cross the track. But she couldn't reminisce with George. In Delray Beach, she didn't say all this, but I, who watched impossibilities of time and loss colliding in her face and saw her thoughtful hands fold her paper napkin into narrow pleats in the narrow space between her plate and the table's edge, I knew well where she resided then and saw mother love and mother loss and mother unresolved and waiting, free-floating in her chest and stomach. So what, I asked, brought Georgie up today? She handed the Sun Sentinel to me. An article on autism, she said. Now Cindy texts me back that Selma's coat was sheer gray mink, unless I meant the stole that she wore on New Year's Eve appearing in the bedroom door to wish us boys good night, bejeweled and backlit in the hallway light. But now I'm confused. It all seemed so clear. Thank you. You are phenomenal. Thank you. And John Dahl, thank you again for that song. That's amazing. I think it's time now to welcome, what's your name again, son? Sal Roseo, come up and read us one more poem so we can go home.
Arthur, that was amazing. Thank you. That was so great, so telling. I love hearing your stories. I gotta say, full disclosure, right? So poets, I think we become friends because we know each other through our work. We're revealing personal things. So you know, I count the RWB Poets as my friend. So thank you, and thank you for inviting me. Let's hear it for the open. You guys, every time, platform, but also freckling every steel-columned I-beam. Any assortment of color they may have had, now muted by a coat of black soot, their texture no longer sticky. Dad corrals us towards the middle of the platform as the swift gust of air from virulent trains right in both directions blows into our eyes and throws our hair. Idly standing, his buttoned shirt sleeves slightly rolled at the large cuff, one hand in front pants pocket, thumb dangling free, not so opposable in our eyes. Our father figures to occupy his two young boys. From his pressed perfect shirt pocket, he pulls out 2 sticks of spearmint gum, handing one down to each of us. Then pulling another for himself, unfolds its silver wrapper to place the flat rectangular gum between his teeth and onto his tongue. His chew slow and cool like spearmint. He puts the empty folded wrapper into his front pocket, warns my brother, his stern tone commanding, chew it, don't swallow it. Looking at each other, we could only guess it was because there was a chance it would stay stuck inside your stomach like all those pressed wads on the floor. As if in parody, we mimic his actions, unfolding our sticks of gum. Unwrapping the paper-thin foil, I study its jagged edges briefly, unveiling the powder-coated flat surface of the gum underneath with the same zigzag pattern carved into it. Then pressing it tightly between 2 fingers, I propel it towards my mouth in the manner I had watched my father do many times before and proceed to chew. I fold the shiny wrapper down again and again until it can't be folded anymore and stick it in my front pocket for later to throw away. Our train finally comes, a mystic portal, it swallows us, then spits us out onto surface destinations, so we hurry back about our business, whatever that may have been that day. Days later, I pull from the front pocket of my plaid pants the folded silver gum wrapper, still intact from the wash and dry it went through. I unravel its squared and triangled folds, revealing the cool spearmint scent of sweet powder trace still thinly layered inside it. A silver train map abandoned for slivers, each delicate seam engraved into its storied surface, a maverick train route tracking off its jagged edge. Its lingering spore, a portal to rushing inbound trains. The trigger of spearmint, a stopover to remind of all the sticks of gum my dad has offered up. The last one having been swallowed and still stuck in my belly.
And my daughter believes that too, and she is the kid. We're all done. We have nothing more to say. We've all unloaded our clothes to each other, and we're going to shut up and go home and think of something else to say. Thank you all for coming. Come back next month. We have
July 5th,
yeah.
George Wallace.
George Wallace is going to be here next month on July
Get your
5th.
phones in.
Everyone here, we're taking attendance, and you can stop applauding for Ron now. He's back from the back.
We're 16. It's open until July 4th.
Fred will borrow your poems for
You
this
volunteer,
year's,
so you're
for this
eligible.
year's books. Yeah.
What's the email?
Oh, really? Eligibility is up till today?
I think I got.
Today it's
I got the
includes
notice, but
today.
it's not your personal email.
All right.
That's right.
Well, I've been holding it in long enough.
Right, I'm on.
Usually
it,
goes
yeah.
up to federal.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it.
Good night, Facebook.
I have a friend who